Tonight, one driver jumps ship, another gets the boot, and someone's cousin's dog might be signing with Red Bull. Yes, the Formula One driver market is in full silly season, and we're here to make sense of the madness. I'm Peter Brook, I'm joined by Nedzo's F1 Gridbox, Ace Shield, and the casual F1 fan, and you're listening to the DRS Train podcast. So there's a lot going on in terms of drivers and even team principals moving around come mid-2025. I mean, at the beginning of the season, it was already quite refreshing because we had a bunch of new rookies coming in. Next year, we've got a new team and a reworked team as well, so there's that to think about. But at the moment, I guess I'll go to Nedzo first. There's a lot of interesting things going on regarding particularly drivers like Max and George, situations at Red Bull with Christian Horner. Yeah, it's quite a lot of gossip right now.
Yeah, there is. I think that Max and George is definitely the biggest kind of talking point because they're quote-unquote rivals, if only off-track rather than actually on it. And yeah, it's that whole Mercedes, Red Bull, will George be kicked out of a team that he's spent so long being loyal to, and will Max take over? It's an interesting dilemma for both Max and for Mercedes, as I said, because George has, I know loyalty isn't really a big thing in Formula One. We've seen drivers and teams stab each other in the back, but George is an especially big case because all the time he spent at Williams and all the time he spent at Mercedes, while they're not as good as they were during their heyday, he has every right to feel like he's been not really given the opportunities he could have been given. Like there's an easy chance that he could have been at the team in 2020 or 2021, but they wanted the stability of Bottas. So that's the annoying thing for George. And if he was to get booted out, he'd just be like, well, what have I done to deserve this then? I know this is the problem, because do you want that extra tenth or two that Max is going to give you in raw pace, or do you go for the guy who's been with you the entire time and will probably, if you have a championship potential car like this season's McLaren, will definitely just win the title at a canter? Or do you go for someone like Max, who, if your car is, let's say, second quickest by like a tenth, who might be able to push it to someone like Norris or Oscar, who is a bit hopeless in a title battle?
Okay, so in that case, you're missing one more thing: the baggage that comes with having a Max Verstappen in the team.
Yeah.
Right? That's interesting because, I mean, ask Christian Horner or Red Bull the kind of baggage that comes with having, with honestly not Max Verstappen, but the Jos Verstappen shaped elephant in the room. So that's one thing. There's the other factor as well, because Toto has considered Kimi Antonelli as a project to a large extent. Is he willing to just kick him to the curb to have a Max Verstappen in the team? I mean, let's just break it down. Let's just first talk about Max Verstappen's candidature as a Mercedes prospect, and then maybe take it to George. A lot of people look. If I take context out of it, Max Verstappen should be the first person every team should want to hire, because he's the best driver in Formula One, and probably, maybe in my view, probably one of the top 5 best drivers ever. You have that person, that talent in the team, a lot of things tend to work. But what we've seen with Red Bull is, if things are going well, having a Max is an added bonus. If things are slightly off the kilter, again, it's fine. But when things start going wrong, he's probably the worst driver to have in the team, and it's not because of him. It's because of the coterie that comes with him. And that's become very obvious in the last 18 months, where you have pretty much a loose cannon in his father, who not only creates a scene in the media, but even in the paddock, where there have been far too many instances of him having a shout out match with Honor. So if Mercedes has the best car, great, have a Max Verstappen and you'll break all records. If it doesn't have the best car, it's maybe same engine, McLaren still has 2 to 3 tenths over Mercedes somehow, then probably Jos Verstappen is going to eat Toto Wolff's head. And does he want that scenario? And I think that's probably a discussion that maybe a lot of people would be having right now.
I don't think that Verstappen father would be able to show Toto's heads, because Toto owns 33% of the team, so it's a bit hard to try and pull off the same trick he did on Horner last week. And for the last year, it wouldn't work with Toto, because he actually owns the team itself.
But we are assuming that Jos takes objectivity into consideration. which he doesn't. That's the big problem with him, because it's just he's a bit of a loose cannon. That's the big problem. It's not about having power or not having power. It's about finding the person who's the stakeholder or who's responsible, and then just venting his, you can say, venting his anger at them. And that's just how. Again, there have been rumors that maybe there was something personal between him and Horner, but we don't really know. Would that carry on at a Mercedes? I'd assume so, because Toto has pretty much gone there with open hands and just welcomed Max with almost every condition possible since last season. That the power in the relationship is probably more towards the Verstappen side. Just what I think right now.
Which makes for an interesting question, because if Verstappen does go to Mercedes, and we know that Verstappen, Jos is kind of a loose cannon, Verstappen likes to say whatever he wants, that at Red Bull, which is an energy drink company mainly, and so having these outspoken personalities, very, very attritional, very fighting personalities, it works well with the brand Red Bull. It wouldn't work well with the brand Mercedes, historic brand of luxury cars, a very high prestige and history behind the name Mercedes. If you have a driver that comes in and say whatever he wants to say, and you have the father of the driver, which is kind of a loose cannon, it doesn't mesh well with the name Mercedes. So if Mercedes does really want Verstappen, it will have to make some concessions on this front. And so, will Mercedes accept this?
I think we could see Max become kind of Ron Dennisified in a way, because we saw with certain drivers that as soon as they get into McLaren, they take on this kind of media savvy narrative. Usually they shave their heads. I mean, I don't think Toto's going to make Max do that. I don't think we want to see a skinhead Max. But I think obviously there was some stuff with Alonso in 2007. But in terms of off the track, we could see something similar to that, where Max becomes more media savvy and isn't so lashing out at the media. Also, I know we've seen kind of Red Bull and Max has kind of been the antichrist of the British media. So maybe him being at Mercedes, a British team, with maybe him having a British teammate wouldn't help, but I think people would be less likely, and reporters especially from the British media would be less likely to latch onto him just because he's Max Verstappen, because being out of that Red Bull kind of group and pack would be kind of diluting his kind of antichrist kind of persona in a way.
I mean, they've always been viewed as well, Max and Red Bull have always been seen as the heels in Formula One, even though Red Bull, okay, Austrian license, but let's be honest, it's a British team. Every team except Red Bull, Alpha Tauri, Ferrari, whatever they're called, and Sauber are British teams. So it's not that really, but it's all because of beating Lewis and blah blah blah. The same thing happened to Vettel. But I think also some people might feel a sense of I don't know if betrayal is the right word if Toto suddenly takes on who's supposed to be their arch rival, even though Lewis has left Mercedes now, that it would just look a bit weird. But it shows a degree of fickleness from Toto, that he likes to come across as being loyal to his drivers in the way he's building up Antonelli, and he was always coming to the defense of Mick, but then he's just going to happily take on Max after Lewis has gone because he's the best driver. And like we saw Las Vegas 23, he was defending the organisers after the scandal with the manhole covers and stuff, because he probably has his own aspirations of becoming FIA president at some point. It's kind of the name of the game. I mean, people like this. I mean, Frank Williams was a sort of copy and paste kind of approach, or plug and play kind of approach to drivers, and as well. And if you want to succeed, that's ultimately what you need to do, is you take the best person if they're available. And at the moment, that is Max. It's just that him against George would be interesting because they hate each other. George would not like that at all, and would probably leave rather than be his teammate. Antonelli will do what he's told, and probably, I don't know, but then he might eventually get fed up as he gets older. It's hard to say.
This situation in the driver market right now kind of reminds me, it's not the same, but it's kind of similar to what happened last year in MotoGP with Ducati. So last year, Ducati had the absolutely best car, and they had two riders, Bagnaia and Bastianini. Then Ducati also had some kind of rider development program in which Bastianini basically was from the program. Jorge Martin, which eventually became champion last year, also was in the young rider program of Ducati. And then they had a third choice, Marc Marquez, which was an established champion, not affiliated with Ducati until last year. He had always been a Honda driver. And so Tardozzi, I think, is the team's principal of Ducati MotoGP. I hope I'm not remembering it wrong. Anyway,
Tardozzi, yeah.
Thank you. Tardozzi had to make a choice. Either being loyal to the drivers he raced, so either Bastianini or Martin for the second seat at Ducati, or choose Marc Marquez, the best driver. And he eventually decided to not be loyal and just pick the best rider he could have.
Thank God.
This year,
finally said rider, by the way. It's rider, it's a bike. Any MotoGP fan who's actually watching right now is actually banging their head on the wall right now because you continue to call it driver. Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
So eventually they chose the best rider possible, Marc Marquez, and Marc Marquez this year on the official Ducati is winning everything. Okay, annihilating everybody else. If Marc Marquez wasn't there, it would probably be Jorge Martin, which is not good enough for hypotheticals of what he's been doing. But Ducati wouldn't be so dominating this year if they didn't have Marc Marquez. Bagnaia is struggling.
They would be dominating this season as well, and they've been dominating for the last 3-4 years now. Last couple of it's been 2 years. Bagnaia has won the title. Then last season it was Jorge Martin that beat him.
But
Marc Marquez is basically the Max Verstappen of MotoGP, isn't he? He's basically having the season that Max had in 2023. And that's why I'm like, why the fuck did they put Marc on a Ducati? That's just, you shouldn't do that to the sport. But yeah.
My idea was last year it was the official Ducati against the client Pramac team.
Yeah,
the customer. Ducati. And then it was 2022, it was Bastianini, which was on the Cresini team, which was customer Ducati, also was fighting for the title. And so, and 2023, it was again Bagnaia versus Martin, and Martin was on the Pramac. So what I'm trying to say is, at least when Ducati was dominant, there was the fight between the official Ducati and the customer riders.
Oh, okay. In that sense, yeah. It's basically Ducati GP right now.
Is winning everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically Marquez GP right now. It's him first and his brother second. That's MotoGP right now. Basically, that's it. Almost all races, it's been Marc Marquez 1, Alex Marquez 2. Yeah, that's just absolute nonsense because they've had I think it's been last 3 years, the championship has gone down to the wire where it's been decided in the final race. We'll probably have the decider 6 or 7 races prior to before the season comes to an end. That's the kind of season he's having. And why did they put him on a Ducati is anybody's guess. True.
Just to go back to Formula One, because we kind of left out Peter and Nedzo from the discussion. So Toto has basically a very similar choice. Either he stays loyal to Russell and Antonelli, or he goes for Verstappen, and so completely betrays the entire meaning of the driver development program of Mercedes. And taking the example from MotoGP, the right choice is pick Verstappen and exclude the driver development program. But in my opinion, this is a possibility. But what is more probable is that Verstappen remains at Red Bull for 2 main reasons. The first one is Verstappen seems to have been involved in getting Horner kicked out from the team. So if this is true, then it only makes sense that Verstappen stays at the team. Because it wouldn't make sense that Verstappen gets Horner kicked out and then just leaves the team himself. So that's the first reason. If it is true that Verstappen helped in kicking Horner out of the team. The second reason is much more practical. Next year, nobody knows what the pecking order is going to be on the grid. There is rumors that Mercedes has the best engine, and then everybody is kind of lagging behind them, more or less. but that's it. They're just rumors. The only actual evidence we have. The only evidence we have is that last year at the Formula One Commission meeting, there were talks about changing the rules on the engine because some wanted different rules, mainly Red Bull. And so Mercedes was adamant, extremely sure, categorically, the rules must not change. We keep this engine and we see how things go. And so Mercedes absolutely did not want the rules to change. Red Bull did try to push for a change of the rules, and Ferrari was flirting with the idea of changing the rules with the balance of electric and thermal power. And so this is the only tangible proof we have that Mercedes may have a better engine than everybody else, because it is obvious that Mercedes is absolutely confident in his own engine. Red Bull is not, and Ferrari not as much. So yes, that's the proof we have that Mercedes has a better engine. And maybe all that is that Mercedes set some lousy targets on the engines, and so it has met them. And instead, the others went took much challenging and riskier targets, and so they are not meeting them. And so I remember the situation some half a decade ago. I think at McLaren, that they said one time, yeah, we thought the car would be extremely competitive, because we had set some targets and we met all of them. And then we found out in winter testing that everybody else had improved more than us. They had set way higher targets than we had. And so, yeah, based on these precedents, targets, meeting them or not is not everything. A team may have met its targets over the winter and then still fell behind the others because the targets were not as strong as anyone else's.
Yeah, it's okay. If you're Max Verstappen, at least in your view, I mean, just a question for all of you guys. If you're Max Verstappen, or if you're looking at it from the outside, do you think Max Verstappen has gone about the entire situation in a good way, or he could have done it better? Since 2024, when Red Bull has started going down, how has he approached the entire situation in your view?
He hasn't really approached it in any way, because he tends to just say nothing. I mean, the most he says
the
is
whole camp, the Verstappen camp, the whole. You can say his manager, Raymond Vermeulen, and the dad. If you
well,
take
I
all
suppose
of them in
it probably doesn't help things that he's letting his dad do most of the talking, as someone who has basically no credibility and no one wants to listen to, really. That I understand he's always going to be loyal to his dad, and he has said in the past that his allegiance is mostly to Helmut because he got him his job and that. But it's like, I'm wondering, does Max himself really dislike Horner that much, or is Horner just being the fall guy? Because I know that there's talks of, one of the reasons they got rid of him is like Chad Eliovidia sold his stake in the team, and so that was one of his main allies. But it's like, this is not really how you treat someone who's been, of the current team principals, he was the longest serving one, and well, the second most successful, second or third, or possibly first most over Toto. That's not really how you should treat them, and it's another example of a team basically collapsing because Adrian Newey is gone, and we've seen this happen every other time he's left a team, more or less. But from Max's perspective, he knows that the car is not where it is, and this year particularly, you can tell in the past 2 or 3 races he has just given up and knows it's done. But it's not. Maybe himself, he should personally speak out a little bit more. Not that he wants to speak out at all, because he clearly hates having to do media interviews and whatnot. But it's not. It's giving leeway to just assume, oh, this is all just Yoss's doing, and it's him telling him what to do and that. But he, at the end of the day, I think he leaves all of that stuff to them, because in his mind is like, I just want a good car and I just want to win, and they can deal with all the other crap for me.
Ed?
For me, the Verstappen camp, I mean, there's a difference between handling yourself well, like the kind of terminology you suggested, and just getting what you want. Because if you look at what the Verstappen camp as a general wanted, they wanted change at Red Bull. They've got change at Red Bull, and they wanted a possible avenue to go to Mercedes or go to another team, and they've got that. So I suppose by those two metrics, if you just look at those bare metrics, they've got what they want and they can do whatever they want. Like, yes, it would be ironic if they got rid of Horner and then he moved anyway, but he's got that opportunity if he wants to. For example, let's say Red Bull are still fourth quickest in 2026. He's got opportunity. Maybe he's got that same clause in his contract that we were talking about this year, where if he's third in the championship or lower, he can leave the team, and then he's got the opportunity to go to Mercedes, whether it be mid-season, whether it be end of the season. He's got a lot of opportunities on his plate, and maybe if it wasn't for those around him, he wouldn't have had those opportunities. I mean, yeah, obviously there are some problems with having outspoken, disliked people in your camp, but at the end of the day, he has now got Horner gone. He has now got opportunities to go elsewhere. So, I mean, he couldn't really be in a better position as a driver because he's the most in-demand driver on the entire grid. Teams are considering literally breaking their entire systems to bring him in. And at the end of the day, I think if let's say Red Bull were the fourth quickest or third quickest team at the start of 2026, and he wanted to move to Mercedes, I bet that if they really wanted it, Mercedes could get a mid-season move done and fire either George or Kimi. I think they'd be more likely to get rid of Kimi, but not get rid of him. They'd move him to Williams or somewhere like that, and it'd be a massive logistical headache. But they could do it if they really wanted to.
I'm just thinking about this sudden driver market movements, because at the beginning of the year at my university, we had a meeting with Marco Perrone and the Visa Cash App Racing Bull team. You know, Marco Perrone is the sporting director of Racing Bulls. And so he made a comment. He asked the entire room, what do you think is the number one priority a team has, the most important thing it has to think about when it gets a new driver mid-season? And so we said everything possible, the setup, how well it gets with the car, the steering wheel, the seating position, communications, and yada, yada, yada. He said, look, all those things are true concerns, but strictly speaking, you can put a driver on an uncomfortable seat. He can learn the steering wheel on the fly. He can do lots of stuff. What he absolutely cannot shortcut is the racing suit. You know, you cannot shortcut that process. Making a racing suit takes 2 weeks, and you cannot shortcut that. And the driver cannot race without the race suit, and cannot use somebody else's race suit. It just does not fit. So, whenever we think about these sudden driver market movements, now I start to think about, okay, but if they had planned this, it means they had a suit already somewhere, unless it's the summer break or something else. They must have had a suit suited for the driver. Otherwise, he cannot be ready before 2 weeks from the announcement. So right now, there is a 3 weeks break. So if a movement is going to happen, there's the time to make the suit. If it's in August, there's also the time to make the suit and get Verstappen in the seat. But otherwise, it simply does not work unless Verstappen is already, before the announcement, already agreed and started taking the measures for the suit. So, yeah, not really, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I thought that there's many implications, because whenever we see the switch between Lawson and Tsunoda this year, you know, it means that Red Bull already had a suit of Lawson at the start of the year and of Tsunoda, with the Red Bull logos and with the Racing Bulls logos, you know, even before they announced the driver swap. And so, yeah, I thought that was actually very interesting to think about. Why would they have that?
There was a 2-week gap, right?
3.
3-week gap, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
enough
still
time to make a
just sort of 2 weeks to go till Spa. But yeah, also, I mean, with Red Bull, because they're from the B team, they're going to have all their measurements on file and stuff like that. It probably doesn't take that long to make a suit, to be honest, because it's all the same material. You just dye it whatever color and put the stickers on for the blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'm not a fashion person. But yeah, let's say Max does leave. Let's ignore where he goes, but let's look at Red Bull itself. So Tsunoda has done. I mean, admittedly, nobody can do anything in that car except Max. He hasn't exactly done much to impress. Lawson flopped like mad. Hadjar hasn't been ruined yet, but I'm sure they'll find time for that. Everyone's getting obsessed with Arvid Lindblad. Like, what are they going to do with themselves other than maybe now they have leeway to build a car that normal people can drive? But it's going to be they might regress back to their sort of 2007, 2008 kind of level of competitiveness. But yeah, what do we think would happen there in terms of like next year's lineup?
If Max is going, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, if Max does go,
I think that I think the immediate number one driver has to be Hadjar, because although he's been a bit stinky in the last couple of races, overall his start of the season was mega, and I believe that he's the driver other than Max that is the most hot property in the kind of race, the Red Bull Racing Bulls situation right now. I think he'd be the perfect number one driver. He's shown to be quite calm. He's no longer as sweary and horrible on the radio. So I think he's perfect to lead that team forward, even though he's got a lack of experience, I suppose. For me, then, it's the choice. I don't think Lindblad can go straight up to Red Bull because we just don't know if he's going to be able to convert to F1, because we've seen drivers like Van Dorn and their line and stuff. Maybe not struggle, but they clearly weren't like fully ready in their first season or two. So
Van Dorn's first season was fine. He got Alonso'd in the second season.
Yeah, that's the thing. Those two are bad examples because Van Dorn got fucked by Nando, and Fairline got fucked by Longbow Finance. Like,
I get but you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying in terms of. I don't think it'd be right to promote Lindblad straight to the Red Bull. It's a choice of either Tsunoda or Lawson. The thing is, Lawson showed at the start of this year that in a car that no one can drive, he's worse than Tsunoda. But in previous years, he's shown that he can beat guys like Ricciardo. He can beat guys like even Tsunoda in 2023. There were races where he was beating him. I think it would be like choosing between Colapinto and Doohan, just better in terms of overall drivers. You either go for the Colapinto over Lawson, who is a little bit more inconsistent, but will probably deliver the higher peak performances. But Tsunoda would be more consistent, I believe. And I think for a team like Red Bull, which will probably be further down the field, I think you've got to go for Tsunoda just because he would be, if the car is, let's say, fourth quickest, he will be the one delivering the 8th places and the 7th places, rather than Lawson. He'll be like, 1 week he'll be 6th, 1 week he'll be 9th, 1 week he'll be 5th, 1 week he'll be 10th, that sort of thing. So I think that the ideal lineup for Red Bull would be Hadjar and Tsunoda going into next year. And then obviously I think that instantly makes Lawson and Lindblad the lineup for the Racing Bulls team.
But considering the fact that now Red Bull is not what it used to be in terms of, it's not a team that's run by races, but more a team run by a board. How are you going to sell a lineup that has 0 podiums as the Red Bull Racing lineup?
So are you suggesting that they get someone from outside?
I mean, at least if they fall back on this lineup, okay, I can understand. But do you think a Red Bull board is going to be fine with a lineup that has 0 podiums at its next to their team? I think that's going to be a big concern.
That's a good question. The only problem is, who can they bring in? Because for everyone, really, it's either a step down or a sidestep of all the really good drivers. So, like, Norris and Piastri aren't going to move because they're in the perfect spot. Russell won't go to Red Bull because he just won't. Antonelli's already at Mercedes. Although Leclerc and Hamilton want to move, and we'll get onto them later, they're not going to go to Red Bull. The only driver I think...
Not anymore.
What do you say?
Not anymore now. Since Horner is gone, the main architect behind Red Bull's success is gone.
Yeah. I mean, the only driver I think who actually has loads of success, who would be kind of a perfect board driver, is Alonso. And he's already got a project at Aston Martin. And even if Red Bull was like on its way back up, it's going to be years. He's not going to be 48 and fighting for titles.
That would be classic Alonso. Leave Aston Martin just as Adrian Newey gets there and goes to Red Bull just after Adrian Newey has gone. That would, This again,
so
him and fast cars, it's like two positive ends of a magnet coming together.
Yeah. As much as I completely understand the point of that's not a lineup that board members want, they haven't really got a choice, because unless they hire someone from like IndyCar, which isn't going to happen, or like another series with like lots of international reputation, there just isn't any drivers available. It's not like the early 90s where guys like Prost were retired or Senna were shopping about for teams. It's just not the case. The driver market isn't viable.
Exactly, yeah.
But Sainz could do it.
I suppose, but he's not really a team leader.
It's a little bit of an upgrade from Williams, and Williams, they had 3 races where they were good, and they've gone back to being useless again. And he's only there because he's got nowhere else to go. It's like he's part of the team before, in one way. So
the thing is, although Sainz is a fantastic development driver, and he'd be great on the car side for getting Red Bull back up to the top, he in terms of the overall driver performance, I don't think he'd be right there. He'd be like a Norris or a Piastri. Obviously, he wouldn't be as bottle jobby, but his overall kind of average performances would kind of be like that, where he's not got the same raw paces or the proper like thoroughbred champion level drivers like your Verstappens, Leclercs, Russells, those kind of guys. He'd be perfect. As I said, he'd be perfect. He'd definitely be better than Hadjar and Tsunoda, but it's a case of, first of all, would they want to bring him in? Because I think there were rumours that he was going to replace Perez, and that never ended up happening. So if they had talks break down then he might not want to negotiate in talks now.
The problem is not that would they want him. I don't think Red Bull, the way it is right now, it is very radioactive. I don't think there's any driver who in his right mind would want to go to Red Bull at this stage. And just being very, very honest about it, and I've probably been one of the more blunt people in terms of expressing a view on how Red Bull has gone about things. I think it has been a foolish decision that they fired Horner, the man who was responsible for bringing the team to where it was. Not only because I don't think there is in their right mind, I don't think Max stays beyond 2026, even if he stays for that particular season. Because look, the car is not going to be. Let's put the cards on the table. I think Mercedes probably has the best power unit next season. Maybe if it doesn't, then fine. Then that's an entirely different thing. I don't think the RBPT is the Red Bull powertrain is going to be. It's going to be at the sharp edge. It's not. It would probably be more the 4th or 5th best, alongside maybe Audi. Seems like that's where it is going to be. And if that is the case, and power units still play a huge role, what that means is Red Bull is not going to be in the top 4-5 teams in Formula One next season. If that is the case, Max Verstappen is not part of Red Bull in any which way. Then in that particular scenario, who is the star attraction that is going to attract any kind of talent to that particular team? Lauren Mekies is not the person. It was going to be Horner, because then if a Christian Horner is there, you expect him to knuckle down, maybe spend years, maybe an year or two, make it a project or whatever, but you expect him to bring the team back to the front because he's done that twice. With Lauren Mekies and the way the board has kind of pushed the main guy out, I don't think there's any driver that wants to end up at Red Bull, because the future for Red Bull is quite uncertain at this stage. I don't think anyone knows where it is going, because Horner is removed after 6 months since he last won his last championship. He's gone. Lauren Mekies is there. He's probably going to be controlled. I think a lot of decisions are now going to be taken by the board itself, and we've seen how teams perform when they're run by the board. Example, Alpine and Ferrari.
Jaguar.
Not that well, precisely, not that well. So yeah, they might end up with a Hadjar Tsunoda lineup, but that's just the recipe for disaster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or they bring in Lindblad as well, and then it all goes to shit, and then they have to hold off allegations of racism that they seem to be wrecking the careers of all the drivers of colour, or whatever. But there is rumours as well.
Yeah, they're pretty race neutral in that sense, right? They wrecked the career of almost every driver, irrespective.
Yeah, I mean Lawson. They've ruined Lawson as well. I mean Max is, well, I don't know. They're not really ruining him. He's kind of got out of there in time, but yeah. Or Checo collapsed as well. They got rid of him, and that was very unpopular. Yeah,
with Mexicans, that's it. It was unpopular with the Mexicans. That's all.
No. I mean, he's still got every picture of him on like the Facebook post they make. His always gets the most likes, and it's always just like Marquez, Fernandez, blah 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 names commenting on everything. It's the same with Colapinto. Yeah, but I think the latest thing I've seen, apparently Lawson might retain his seat next year with RB. It's like fair enough, whatever.
I'm not sure that's true, because New Zealand Herald. I know how the local media works when it comes to things like this. So
yeah, but if he does, it's like, well, you're not going to go into the main team again unless they make a car that's more friendly to you. So you might as well jump ship and try something different. It's a tricky one. But yeah, maybe let's look at Ferrari. So this one, there's no obvious signs of anyone going in the same way as we have with Red Bull, other than they're unhappy with Vasseur, and Lewis and Leclerc are unhappy. I mean, Lewis is still new to the team and learning the ropes, but he's used to having everything work exactly as he needs it all the time, and doesn't get that with Ferrari. Leclerc, I think, is beginning to cotton on that Ferrari is not the place to be, and maybe it's time to think about going somewhere else as he tries to resist becoming Jean Lacey.
Took 7 years.
It took 7 years, in which time he could have won a few championships, and he's probably going to end his career without any. So that might happen. If they go, then you think to yourself, well, would Sainz want to try and go back there? Would Max want to? I can't even remember who's in the driver academy. It's like Beganovic and whoever else. I don't know. I don't know what they would do. Because it's an unknown going into 26 about who's going to be where in the pecking order.
I think Ferrari has a bigger problem at hand if they are still, and I think that is actually going to be the case. I think if Fred Vasseur is not fired this season, he's probably getting fired next season. Because the power unit, as far as I have heard rumblings there, and I think Ace kind of touched on it. If you're a team that is more than happy to prevent the introduction of the new power unit, it tells you it is an indication of the kind of confidence you have in the kind of project that you're putting together. So if Mercedes is supposedly at the front, and maybe teams like Honda is there as the second best, and then you have the other three, that's not where Ferrari wants to be ideally. And that means Fred Vasseur gets the boot either way. If it's not this season, it's going to be next season. And if that happens, they'll probably bring in the person from the VEC. I'm forgetting his name. I don't remember his name. Because that's the scenario that I see it actually playing out. And next season, I don't see either Leclerc or for 2026, I don't see either Leclerc or Lewis moving, because they are being sensible on that front. At least they'll see how the field is going to be at the start of 2026. But then things will start changing. I have a feeling, maybe a hunch, and I hope I'm right, that Leclerc finally gives up on his dream of winning with Ferrari, because that's a stupid dream to have. Best thing for him to do would be, I think, just as soon as the first couple of races or the first test happens, just give a call to Lawrence Stroll and move to Aston Martin. Enough of this already, because it's stupidity. The way Ferrari has gone about things, it's utter rubbish, and I hope Leclerc finally sees the light and moves. Lewis, on the other hand, I think he'll stay. I think that's I think what he sees is that this is his final bastion. He'll have the approach that he'll try to bring the entire team around him, rally the troops. Leclerc goes, they'll bring in Olivier and ruin his career. That's the future I see.
And Lewis, he'll retire at the end of 26. More if they're no better next year.
If Leclerc is gone, I think Lewis will stay, and he'll maybe try to rally the troops and bring the team along, and maybe mint a few more millions, right?
Yeah.
I think the pro player move by Leclerc is actually to remain at Ferrari next year. So far, he's beating Hamilton, so that rises his own stocks if he keeps beating Hamilton. And as things stand, it doesn't even look that hard to do. So then in 2026, he can see how the pecking order is. If Ferrari is actually the best car, great, he can fight for the championship. If it's not the best car, then he just keeps on beating Hamilton, and then he tries to go to the team with the best car for 2027. And when, of course, he'll have to fight Verstappen for that seat. But Leclerc can say, I beat a 7 times world champion 2 years in a row. If it'd be stupid not to choose me over to not choose me over Verstappen. So I think that's the pro player move by Leclerc. Then on a different note, still about Ferrari, I think it's kind of poetic, the way that Ferrari is basically lost at sea, and so they decided to join a boat competition program where they build the Cataramano in Italiano. I don't think how it is translated in English. Anyway, it is basically oh God, I don't remember any name. The big boat competition, the one that Newey during his break from Red Bull before he announced Aston Martin, Newey had said, this is an interesting competition to do.
The power boat thing, like yacht sailing. I know what you mean.
I check it right now. So give me 5 minutes.
Okay.
Ferrari.
I mean, if Behrman goes there, I mean, it's a little premature. I feel like it would be almost because I know that Ocon, even though he was a Mercedes junior, he's always coveted Ferrari and wanted to go there. So maybe it'd be fair to let him try it first, because Behrman is only midway through his first full season, so that is quite soon to be promoting him to the big team.
He'll have 2 seasons, right, under his belt if he's replacing Leclerc for 2027.
Oh, by then it'll be 2 years, so then it'll be fine. But yeah, Ocon, I think Ocon, it's fair enough to give him a go first, but then Ocon getting screwed over is nothing new. Lewis, I think, will take either of them. I mean, him and Behrman, we've got a new British team-ish in an Italian kind of clothing. But yeah, I mean, Giovinazzi is a possibility if they bring in that WEC team principle. You never know. Because I think he does seem to have sort of unfinished business in Formula One, so to speak. Although that would be a gap of 5 years, which is quite large to go between seats in Formula One. There's no one else really, because the rest of them it's just the juniors that are all just mid or so boring or uninteresting that I don't even know who they are. There's Beganovic is doing it. Kamara, isn't he? Maya Voigt.
Kamara. He's with. Oh, okay. You're talking about the F3. Okay.
Rafael Kamara, the F3 one. God, let's look this up. Who's actually on the academy now? Because I mean, none of them are ready for. They would go to Haas first, or Sauber or something. They wouldn't go straight up to the big team. Yeah, Dino Beganovic, Maya Voigt, Rafael Kamara, Tuka Tappanen, Aurelia Nobles, and then Noah Baglan and Filippo Sala. Yeah, they're not. Yeah,
I think they might go with someone like a Norris or a Oscar. If whoever has lost the championship is probably going to be on the market by the end of 2027.
I mean, it's because everyone seems to have decided that whoever loses is going to leave, and it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's a fairly congenial team for the most part. Like, it's not like they're not being openly biased towards one driver or the other. And at the moment, there's no reason to leave when it's obviously the best car. But also, then we're not seeing the same sort of strife between them that we had with Hamilton and Rosberg, or like Prost and Senna. It's sort of just working reasonably well for them. I think some people were kind of hoping that Lando might go because he was being useless for a few races and then seems to have sorted himself out recently. And then it would just be sort of poetic to bring in Max and he starts winning titles again or whatever. But McLaren, because they have a few juniors in the works, and Pato O'Ward is always on the sidelines. They're giving him testing, and there's always hinting at him being in F1. It's like, yeah, but in what capacity? Because he's not going to go there with McLaren, I don't think. And he'd probably take any team if he really wanted to, because otherwise he's stuck in IndyCar just having Alex Palou win everything. But he's one of the ones, because Colton Herta and the others, that any talks of them going to F1 seems to have disappeared, but Pato O'Ward seems to still linger there.
For McLaren, I think it's probably Alex Dunn. He's been decent in Formula 2. I think he might get and they made a lot about the FP1 run, but again, that's take things into context.
Well, they would have cranked the engine up and put them on softs and qualifying fuel and blah blah blah.
Yeah, when I pointed it out, a lot of Irish people got upset at me, including Jason.
Yes. I don't know. He's basically crashing his way to the F2 title, because I mean, if Vershaw wins, it doesn't count. Like, so yeah. It'll be done winning F2 this year. And no doubt his reward will be a year of doing nothing, because that seems to be the reward for everybody.
He might be. I'd still wait with the F2 season. I think there are still a lot of races left, isn't it? There are like 5.
Halfway through. I mean, I've paid so little attention. I watched it in person in Silverstone. I was like, I don't even know who's where, because I don't remember who the drivers are, and they've all got their academy liveries on. So I'm like, I don't know who's who. Yeah.
Yeah, trust me, that's a good thing, because every time you watch an F2 race, it's like, why do I watch it? Because
it's a mess. And also, if Vershaw is winning races in a series, then that series is illegitimate. So yeah,
pretty much.
So I went back and checked what I was trying to talk about. So basically, last month, Ferrari had announced that they would join the world of sailing with a new project called Hypersail. And so they would produce an original prototype of a 100-foot flying, ocean-going racing monohull. So
Okay.
if any one of you ever watched the America's Cup, it's basically a boat like that. And
Oh
so I
yeah,
thought it was
the
kind of
yachts,
poetic.
yeah.
I thought it was kind of poetic that the Ferrari Formula One team is lost at sea, so Ferrari decides to go and build boats.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that Adrian Newey's going to join Ferrari so that he can build
No,
boats.
no.
Something.
Just Newey had said he was interested in the America's Cup, and so
Yes.
maybe an option instead of going to Aston Martin or Ferrari was to go to one of these teams and project a cataraman.
Yeah.
That's what they're called. And then he decided,
catamaran.
no, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yes, my bad.
You sound like you said
then he
Qatar-man, so yeah.
Yeah, I kept saying also before cataraman, and instead the
Yeah.
right word is catamaran. So my bad. Yes, I was making a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we should look at Aston Martin briefly, because this one, people are always discussing transfers with them, even though they are like the eternal team and it's etched in stone that their drivers won't go. Because now that they've got Newey, the expectations are that it's going to be a good car next year. I mean, he brought those upgrades in Silverstone, very nice looking floor edge, and it clearly works because the car, for the most part, was competitive despite the changing conditions and the strategy call maybe not working for them. Stroll, well, he's going to be there forever, even though he's begging to leave and play tennis. Alonso is going to stay as long as he can, I feel, but he can't keep it going forever. And it's going to become a very hot seat if they do have a good car next year. So I feel like almost anyone could go to Aston because it's going to become so desirable. Anyone except their juniors, because they don't care. Like it's Drogovic and Crawford. Drogovic and Crawford, I think, and then I mean Drogovic has been a junior for what 3 years now, just as a formality because we won F2. Crawford, they've given him a bit of attention. There's that Jess Hawkins, but that's not going to go anywhere. There's probably someone else. Murray Boyer. Oh yeah, that one came out of nowhere. He won a F3 at Silverstone.
Yeah.
So it's them, but they're all. Then if it's a really competitive car, they're not going to throw rookies in, and they're not going to risk that. They're going to want experienced people, and so maybe Max or George or anyone like that, Leclerc, any of those. There's so many. Yeah, a lot of people might want to go there.
Yeah. By the way, Lance's future is not entirely certain. Probably the biggest reason is he in Barcelona he probably reached a breaking point when he kind of punched through the wall and threw a lot of things away and hurt his wrist in the process. So there seems to be there's only so much you can take when you keep losing to your teammate like forever. He hasn't outqualified Alonso for more than 12 months now, and it is seemingly playing on him. And next season, if the car gets better, assuming it does, he might stick around if it is a better car, but you really don't know what the future is with him, because there have even been some suggestions in the paddock that the Saudi Arabian investors, they are starting to get a bit impatient with how Lance is going and how he's conducting himself, and they are maybe looking at increasing their stake within the Aston Martin team, so maybe have more you can say decision making power. If that happens, maybe they'll look at a change in lineup. But with Aston Martin, I think there's one thing pretty safe to say, and maybe they'll realize it next season. You don't win championships with Lance Stroll as a driver, as one of your drivers. That is quite certain. And if we have a scenario next season where they have a strong car and the gap is a bit too big, and Lance looks like Lance, to be honest, there might be conversations, and maybe they might need to think about a change. Maybe, who knows? But if next year the car is good, I think both of the drivers would probably be on the market, because they might look at a replacement for Alonso, beat any of the younger drivers. Let's see though.
I'm going to partially disagree with that, because you said that you're not going to win any championships with Lance Stroll. I'm not sure if you mean the drivers or the constructors' championship, because I think if Aston is the fastest car, I think they'll pretty easily win the constructors. The thing is with Lance,
it depends by how much it is faster, right? If it's the McLaren fastest car of last season, they might leak a lot of points in that case.
Maybe the thing is with Lance is, overall, don't get me wrong, he's had moments where his performances have been really bad, but there have also been seasons where he's been like, even though you said like this season he's not out qualified Alonso since however long, 12 months. He's still outraced him in a lot of the races where Aston have been able to get points. Like,
Name them.
what do you say?
Name them, because I'm honestly pissed when people say that he's been the better racer than Alonso. Because look, I'm one of the bigger Alonso haters I've been throughout my life, because he was quite anti-Vettel. But this is pretty disrespectful for us, especially coming for when we're comparing him with Lance Stroll, for fuck's sakes. Go for it. Tell me which races.
So in Australia, while Stroll, don't get me wrong, he cruised to a 6th place finish and he wasn't really pushing very hard. But Alonso crashed out on his own.
Why did he crash out?
Because he made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Because he basically bottomed out over gravel. There are images of that happening. That's what happens with
gravel on the circuit. Then you don't go as fast as you did the lap before. It's simple.
No, the gravel was it was because of Oscar running off track, and then the gravel came. That's what happened.
Gasly.
And where was Alonso before he crashed? Gasly was the one, yeah. And before he crashed, Alonso was ahead of him. The other race where Lance scored points was in China, and in that race, I think Alonso had a PU failure or a brake failure or something like that.
Brake failure, so lap 4.
Yeah. So the first 2-3 races is where Lance scored points, and all of them were not because he was the faster or better performing driver. It was primarily because Alonso had bad luck on his front. You remove those aside, it's been.
I know in the Miami sprint Alonso should have been ahead because of a strategy problem, but he still had that needless.
He also had the Lawson problem.
Yeah, the needless incident with Lawson that both of them could have avoided by not being dipshits.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what I'm trying to get is, it's not just 2025. 2020, before Lance got COVID, he was a better driver than Perez. And this is the thing. I think, don't get me wrong, 2023 proves that he's not always better when he's in a fast car. He has moments of inconsistency, and he has some moments where he's really off the pace. But I think if he was to pull him together, for example, if he performed like in 2026 like he did in 2020, he'd be better than Alonso. And I think that again that might be quite far fetched. I don't know if like form and whether he would be able to get back up to that level. But I am of the opinion that Lance is obviously a motivation led driver. If he's down in the dumps, he performs awfully. If he's somewhat motivated, he does well. And I think that when you're in a championship winning car driven by designed by Adrian Newey, you've got one of the best of his generation, admittedly not this generation, but his generation up against you. I think that, lads, I'm not saying that he would definitely win the title, but I think that he would at least give Alonso a run for his money, if not for part of the season. He might do a Leclerc 2022 where he's looking competitive for half a year and then he just tails off. But I wouldn't completely count Lance Stroll out as some, like, because I know there are people who say he's the worst driver on the F1 grid. He's not even close to being the worst driver on the grid.
Who's the worst driver?
At the moment, probably Colapinto.
I'd still reserve judgment on him because it's Alpine. Who's the second worst driver?
At the moment, on
I will not put Lawson below Stroll in any which way. Yeah. Again, here's my judgment of Lance. I think in terms of talent, he deserves to be in Formula One, and on his day, he can do brilliant things. And we've seen it. We've seen it in Baku 2017, if I'm not wrong. It was 2017 when Ricciardo won. We've seen it in a couple more races in the wets. The problem with Lance since day one has been he's the same driver that he was in 2017. He's not worked on himself. He's not tried to improve. He's not made the kind of stride which a lot of drivers around him have. And why that is the case is primarily because, look, privilege comes at a price, and that's the whole thing. He's there and he's always guaranteed to be there. He's not had to struggle for it. He's not had to put the hard yards. And that's just what we see. Talent can only take you so far, and that's where he is right now. I would say he deserves to be in. I would say until 2023, he deserved to be in Formula One. But once we started getting rid of the pay drivers, I think he's below the caliber of almost everyone. And I'd put Colapinto and Lawson above him.
I'm gonna say my tidbit on Stroll because it's always hard to judge him since he's always on the far back, is always inconsistent. So the three primary problems that Stroll has are: one, he's a weak qualifier. People don't understand, but just to be clear, he lost the qualifying head-to-head against Sirotkin. Who of you remembers Sirotkin? Sergei Sirotkin?
I liked Sirotkin as a driver, by the way.
Yeah, same.
He got shafted.
He was also like a student of engineering, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was Russian. He did a lot of things. They're told to do that.
But anyway, first, Stroll is a weak qualifier. Second, for whatever reason, he's bad with DRS trains. Kinda ironic given the name of our podcast. But whenever he's stuck in a DRS train, Stroll always remains stuck. He cannot get out of the DRS train, and so the fact he's a weak qualifier, by the way, so he usually ends up in DRS trains in one way or another, and so he qualifies badly, and then he's in the DRS train, he's stuck for half of the race. And then, yes, the third problem, which is evident to everyone, is he's very, very inconsistent. When he's at 100% of his power, he is actually a very good driver. But the point is, it's almost like he rolls before any race weekend, any number from 80 to 100. And then that's how close to the percentage of his maximum performance he is. And so one time out of 20, he's going to be at 100% of his capabilities. And the other 19 times is going to be subpar to himself. That's what I say when he is inconsistent. It's a different way of inconsistency from Ocon. Ocon is like half of the time at 100%, half of the time at 95%. So, Stroll is, wow, how incredibly inconsistent he is. But aside from those three problems, he's a fine driver. The point is, these three problems really have a way to complement each other and enhance each other, and so Stroll hardly ever achieves anything good. This year, he's been lucky with the strategies in the wet, in the sense he always relied on the team strategy-wise during the wet. And during the wet, his side of the team always got the strategies right. In Australia, he pitted at the right times. In Miami, he was among the first one to pit. And in Silverstone, he got both calls very right. And so he benefits from this. Otherwise, the car sucks. Probably he has a problem with these ground effect cars. He's so inconsistent, you can't tell. But after 4 years, I'm starting to get the idea. Maybe he struggles with the ground effect cars. And he's better suited to the 2021 cars, and hopefully be better suited to the 2026 cars. And then, during normal races, his strategies have not been great. They've all been more or less Hail Marys. I remember Jeddah. He remained out so long on the track waiting for a safety car, never came out. And basically the same happened in Japan and several other races. So it's so inconsistent that then everything becomes muddled when I try to gauge how good Stroll is. At the end of the day, I'd say yes, he's good enough to stay in Formula One, but everyone else in Formula One is better than him. That kind of zone.
As I said, I've disagreed with that. Obviously, to your points, I think if Aston Martin is the best car next year, let's say by the same margin that McLaren is this season, just for argument's sake and to be logistically easy. Obviously, he has qualifying troubles, and I'll say that. But let's say he does have the same qualifying troubles he's having, for example, this year. I think with how close the field is, like he's usually only about 3 to 4, maybe 5 tenths off of Alonso at maximum. If the 2026 Aston Martin has the same advantage over the field that the modern McLaren does, he'd maybe qualify like at lowest maybe 6th on any given weekend. And when you're in the best car, although he can struggle in DRS trains, I think that when he has a guaranteed car advantage,
we don't have any DRS trains next season.
Oh yeah, we won't, but we will have. I assume that the active aero, because everyone can use the active aero, can't they? So I assume we might get the same effect with like the active aero, and it's not. It's a lot. Wait, is it the case that you can't use it whenever you want?
active aero means you can use it whenever you want. There is no such thing as DRS anymore. So
So what I'm saying is, because the reason why the DRS trains exist is because everyone behind a certain driver can use DRS, and it doesn't actually make any mitigating effect. So if everyone can use active aero, it makes it even worse because even the lead driver will be able to use it.
There will not be a train in that case because the driver up front will never. The DRS train effect happens when the driver up front cannot use the DRS. When he can use the DRS, he'll break the DRS train, right? Because the 1 second gap would not exist anymore.
I suppose. I do also think it's going to be bad for overtaking because the main problem with
the 100%.
The main reason we can't overtake in modern F1 is because of the efficiency of the aero, and now you're making the aero even more efficient on the straights, which is going to make it even more hard to overtake. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it could be hard to overtake in the race. So drivers who are less good in qualifying nowadays might need to shape up Hamilton, Stroll, but. What
are you talking about? 100+ pole positions. What are you talking about?
I'm not even going to dignify that response because we all know the reasons behind that. But yeah, I wouldn't count Stroll completely out of a title fight because I do think that he has got it in him to do it. It's just whether he can extract the performance, and that's what the problem is. As I said, if he performed at his level in 2020, he would win the 2026 title over Alonso. Not because Alonso's bad, but he's just past his prime, and he's a lot more error prone than he was even last year or the year before.
Yeah, agreed.
I do think his age has finally caught up with him. Like as I said, we've seen it with other drivers. I think it's finally caught up with him because he's he's literally pushing 45. He's going to be 45 next year. And even guys like I think the only modern driver who's performed like this well late into their career was Schumacher, and he was in like 2012 was the best season of his comeback. He was 43 during that season, and I don't see Alonso getting back to the levels of performance he was once at, not on a consistent basis anyway. So I still think that Stroll could, if Aston Martin was the best car by a couple of tenths in that circumstance, he could still win the 2026 title. But he would need to be consistent over a year, and he'd probably need to do similar to a 2016 Rosberg, where he just extracts everything out of himself to sneak past the post, and then he'd probably retire, which is fair enough.
Yeah, I think for Alonso, the last few races have told that maybe he still has it in him. But since probably the Imola upgrade, he's kind of stepped up with the car also improving. I agree. I want to see how he does in a better car and up front with all the other top drivers because that's still an unknown. But look, even if now I have to pick between, if we have I won't even say the McLaren of this season kind of car. I'd say even the Mercedes of 2014 kind of car. If that kind of advantage is there for Aston Martin, I think Alonso walks the championship quite easy. I mean, again, you can think differently on that front. I think Alonso walks the championship. The reason is, first of all, he's probably going to be more adaptable. Second is he has Stroll in his pocket by now, and he's probably going to ramp it up when it comes to the title. And I don't think Lance is one of the more mentally strong drivers to actually take that.
I know we're kind of hanging on Alonso and Stroll here, but I will say, if we're like 2014 Mercedes, that pretty much mitigates all of Stroll's weaknesses. Qualifying, I mean, I know DRS trait. It does kind of mitigate, and also his inconsistencies. If Stroll was to have an inconsistent day, he'd finish second in a 2014 Mercedes.
He'll crash in qualifying.
What do you say?
He'll crash in qualifying.
I mean, Lewis did that in Germany 2014. And where did he finish third that day?
Probably.
I don't remember. Yeah, even in even the British GP, right? He was 5th or 6th or something, and then I think Rosberg had a DNF and he won.
Yeah, but Stroll's better than Lewis, so he'd do better.
And on that bombshell, let's move to the next one.
Peter, do you want to speak? You haven't spoken in a while.
Alpine is always interesting as a team. They're kind of going to shit. I mean, as we've seen, Colapinto's been a bit underwhelming, so there's murmuring to maybe bring back Doohan, which is like, okay, he's not going to set the world alight, but in the interest of justice and fairness, I think you need to bring him back because he had a contract for the whole year. If you want to get rid of the Flav, I think you need to publish the Epstein files, because I think we all know he's going to be in there and probably one of the more prolific offenders in it. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, Gasly should probably go, because I mean he's been driving absolutely supremely for the past 4 or 5 years, and Alpine is just falling to pieces. Yeah, there's very little about them that warrants any kind of support, I find, at the moment.
I was going to say unless you're French, and then I realised that element of the team is going as well. So,
well, yeah, they're not going to be Alpine, and there's not going to be nothing Alpine about them next year. So I don't know why they're still calling themselves Alpine.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, if you're Alpine, you want to desperately hang on to Gasly as long as possible because he's the only modicum of anything that's holding that team up into some sort of level of above mediocrity. See, I see. Although on the driver front, although Colapinto has been inconsistent, again, he was similar to what he was in 24. On his peak days, he's been decent enough. Like
just one peak day, right? Just probably just the Canadian GP weekend. That's it.
Otherwise, was that one where he started 10th?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think Colapinto did that. And the thing is with Doohan is he got better towards the end of his tenure, but at the end of the day, choosing between Colapinto or Doohan at the moment is like choosing which lung to have the cancer in. It's not really a good choice that you want to have. It's genuinely like at this point, although again you'd want to find a free driver on the market like a Bottas, he'd be a good kind of. It'd be boring, but if he's not going to Cadillac race, it'd be a boring choice to just bring in for the rest of the season just to see where the car is and whether he can help improve it and that sort of stuff. But failing Bottas, if he is going to Cadillac and he can't obviously sign any deals with Alpine this season in case it affects his deals next season, I just keep cycling through the junior team and just hoping that throwing something at the wall until it sticks. Go through Ciaron and Miney by the end of the season because most likely Ciaron and Miney are going to just do it just as well as Colapinto and Doohan, but there's a chance they might not because we saw with Behrman last year in Saudi Arabia. Don't get me wrong, that Saudi Arabian drive wasn't fantastic, but given the circumstances, it was good enough. Good. Yeah, exactly. So we could Paul Ciaron and Kushma. The thing is, we never although Behrman had shown potential, we didn't have any inkling that he'd have done just as well as he did, and we could have the same thing with Paul Ciaron and Kushmaini, or Kushmaini. As much as we probably.
I wouldn't mind Kushmaini getting a seat. But
I wonder why.
Nationality bias. Plus, he's my first exclusive that I ever did. I think the problem with the Alpine that is going to be there is it's not about what's happening right now. I think a lot of it will depend if that is the team where Horner kind of pinpoints that's his future, because whatever Horner does next is probably going to dictate what happens at Enstone. Because if he decides that Enstone is going to be his future, he's probably going to be a part owner in the team. Yeah. And if that is happening, then that place becomes very, very attractive for a lot of drivers. Because if Horner is there, and he's not going to come alone, he's going to bring the entire coterie from Red Bull, which is pretty much down the road from Milton Keynes. And once that happens, you might see that then Alpine might start turning heads and maybe it might become a better team. For now, it's very, you can say, unpredictable what happens with them because Flavio is basically trying to just up the value as much as he can. And maybe not the best approach for running a Formula 1 team, but that's where they are.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I do like to bash Horner because with his departure, people have started to say like he's a top 10 or top 5 team principals of all time, and he's not even close. No, he's not. No, he's not.
I'm going to bring you on our pod, the Blatantly Biased Racing podcast, by the way, just a plug. I'm going to bring you on that, and we're going to discuss this to the night, pretty much throughout the day. Yeah.
Get the bleep machine out. We cannot have people promoting their shit. But seriously, I think he'd still be a step up on Flavio just because that'd be future proofing the team. It's like choosing. It'd be like bringing back Ollie Oakes. Is like keeping Flavio over Horner.
What happened with him, by the way?
I don't know. Probably in Dubai prison cell. But yeah, I think that could kind of bring the team up. But again, Alpine / Renault / whatever has always been a kind of team that's always been in this state of kind of limbo of like it'll be kind of this what's it called 2026 Alpine with Horner would be kind of like 2008 Renault in a way that you'd have a good team principal. Flav was a good team principal back then, even if if everything else about him was like despicable, he was a good team principal. And then you've got a good driver in Gasly. Admittedly, Gasly's not 2008 Alonso, but he's still good. And you kind of have a base to jump off in terms of, you have a base to propel the team off, what should I say, in terms of performance. You just need to find a good second driver. you could find someone like, I don't know, Albon could maybe move there if the Williams
No
project
chance.
doesn't end up going. I always
In
joke
James
about
Vowles we trust.
because
he's going to bring them back to the.
yeah, because I always joke because I wanted Norris to leave McLaren. I said annoyingly because the regulation switch is happening and no one wants to move teams. I said in an ideal world where that wasn't happening, I'd want Charles to move to McLaren and then Norris to move
I
to
wouldn't mind.
somewhere else. And then so can you imagine Norris to Alpine? That'd be funny. Gasly and Norris.
Perfect for his mental health, right?
Yeah, because in the midfield, Norris is a fantastic driver, like a Fisichella, like a Hulkenberg, like other drivers. But at the front, he's not useless by any sense, but he's not great. So I think he'd be perfect in the midfield. It'd be basically a Heidfeld 2.0, just without any of the kind of cleverness or kind of because you tend to get all the midfield drivers tend to be really like mechanically smart and really knowledgeable about cars and knowledgeable about how to bring a team up, like a science. But Norris, I mean, yeah, he's not like that. He'd just be good enough to drive the cars to where they need to go.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
when it, as I said, I think there is maybe a scenario. Okay, just touching on Colapinto as well, because I think he's been pretty much undersold at Alpine. Because the first few races at Williams, the kind of pace we saw, unless we think that Albon is a few or Gasly is a few tenths quicker than Albon. I think there's something that's going on at Alpine where maybe the pressure is too much. Maybe Colapinto is unable to adapt to the car or whatever it is. It seems that he's not able to show his best, at least for the time being, and that is something that is playing into his performances. Even when it comes to Doohan, I think both Doohan and Colapinto deserve to be on the F1 grid. They are decent enough talents, and if given time, they'll basically morph into at least decent midfield drivers. It's just that when it comes to Alpine, you don't really know what they're going to do. They have no. I don't think even the. By the way, the Enstone squad is currently it's just been cut down to about 250 people, where there were around 750 of them by the time Flavio had joined. So the exodus has been huge as well. You don't really know what's the future there, and if you're trying to put a driver, I think it's basically whatever fits, whatever gets the decent enough results. That's what they're looking at right now.
The thing is with doing in Colapinto, I think that on a 20 driver grid, like what we have nowadays, I don't think they're good enough for F1. But on a 22 or a 24 driver grid, they could be. Because as we saw, like people had like tried to say in previous years that 2012, for example, was the best grid in F1 history when it wasn't. Because although you had guys like the 7 champions, you had guys like Carl Verkeyen and D'Ambrosio and Charles Pic. When you expand the grid, the drivers overall become worse. And I think that in a 24 driver grid or maybe even a 22 driver grid, like we're going to get with Cadillac next year, I think Colapinto could sneak into those 22 drivers as being deserving of being F1, but I don't see it. Because the thing is with Colapinto, we've seen that upper performance. We've seen him beat Albon. We've seen him do well. And don't get me wrong, he crashes a lot. And that's not good. But with Doohan, like, I think he beat Gasly like once in qualifying, and it might have been because Gasly didn't get a second run up twice in qualifying. And he didn't get, and I think one of the times wasn't even fully legit. And in the races, most of the time, he was nowhere. I don't see Doohan being like anything more than, as I said, like a Charles Pic, just someone who's super anonymous and is a nothing driver, unfortunately. So I think if I was Alpine, I'd stick with Colapinto, but I'd actually give him stability. The problem is Flavio's not going to do that. He's going to want to do it his way, and whether it is bringing all the juniors in or whether it is bringing in Bottas, he's going to basically Red Bull that team into a pressure cooker situation, but it just doesn't work. So I think, yeah, in terms of a driver market, Alpine's just, it could go anywhere. We could have Colapinto in that seat next year. We could have Ciaron, Maini in that seat next year. We could have Bottas in that seat next year.
We might have them next week. Who
Exactly.
the fuck knows?
Exactly.
I mean,
because we don't even know because of what happened with Colapinto. Apparently, he burned out his clutch in Silverstone. People at the team might want him out, and yeah, it's like who do you replace him with? Because unless Bottas is available on such a short notice on loan from Mercedes, you've got to bring in Ciaron or Maini. And I mean, as I said, Ciaron and Maini, they are, especially Ciaron, decent junior series talents. Maini less so. He's kind of like the Indian Vashore in a way. Yeah. He's just kind of there. That's the problem. I'd put Maini on the same level as Doohan, and ironically, Ciaron probably on a similar level to Colapinto in terms of junior series capabilities. And it just wouldn't solve anything, because as much as I'd want Aaron or Hermione to come in and do a Bearman, and we have another interesting, amazing performance from
Yeah, but
from a drive we
Duan and Aaron do not have the kind of races that or the performance that Beerman did in F2. I mean, he basically put a Formula 2 car on pole with a bent steering, right? In Baku,
Yeah.
of all places.
Yeah.
So Beerman's issues have been with consistency per se,
Yeah.
but when it comes to out and out pace and talent, he's there.
Yeah. I mean,
haven't seen
Aaron
that.
did have his moment. The annoying thing was, I remember Aaron's F2 season last year. When he didn't qualify on pole, he did really well in the races. And when he did qualify on pole, he didn't do really well in the races. That's the problem he had.
That car has something going for it as well.
Yeah,
The two cars that are it's
Berkson.
the I'm forgetting the name. The grey
Like
car. No, the car.
High tech.
Yeah, high tech and Invicta. There's something going on with those two cars, which is quite obvious now, but people don't talk about it.
Okay. Still, I still think that I'd want to see rookies do well, or as I said, even Bottas could come back if Cadillac allow it, if Mercedes allow it. But if I was Alpine, I would stick with Colapinto, because I think he's not better than Bottas, but he's still. I think I'd want the stable option, because he could develop to be at least a decent midfield driver, kind of in terms of his inconsistencies, maybe someone like a Maldonado who's a bit inconsistent but can deliver good results on his day.
How would Maldonado have been in the current social media age? His fans would have been a handful.
His fans would have been a handful, but I think he was also, I believe,
especially after that win.
This is definitely a complete detour, but
yeah.
I think because according to people who know him or have known him in real life, apparently he was a super nice character. So I suppose he could be like Colapinto in that sense. And I mean, he said on the Beyond the Grid podcast that he would have loved to drive the modern era like the initial wide body cars and then the ground effect cars, because he always loved a stable rear end, and those things were about as stable as you could get.
yeah, true. What's next?
I mean, we've covered all the teams that have interesting things to go on, don't we? Have we? Are there any teams we haven't covered actually? Because we've touched on almost everybody in one form or another.
We haven't touched Fast, but they don't have anything important going about them. We haven't touched Audi, but they haven't got anything important going about them.
Yeah, because
Audi might, by the way, if again it's conflicting statements that have come out. The engine facility in Ingolstadt apparently it is turning heads according to a few people, that they might have at least they won't have the best power unit next season, but they might have a decent one. That's what they're saying for now, and maybe there's some merit to it, because Audi has been working with electric technology for a while. It's not something that's new to them, so maybe they might have sorted a few things out. I don't know. It's still, we have to see how they do. They might have a few. If the team is decent, Jonathan Wheatley is a good name. Matteo Binotto is a name, but yeah, if the team is good, you might see them pick up some big name. Maybe. What's your view on Bortoletto this season, by the way? Just touching.
Good to improve.
He's getting into a rhythm. I mean, it helps him that the car is getting good, and Sauber are kind of turning themselves around. I mean, aren't him and Hogberg, aren't they both contracted for next year, or is it just so as they've got both of them in, so they might do well off this. But I'm finding now that I want it, it's impossible to get like Kick Sauber merch anywhere. It just doesn't exist, or it's all sold out, because I think everyone else is getting on the hype train after Hogberg got his podium. But now it looks like it's going in the right way, and yeah, Jonathan Wheatley seems to know what he's doing as TP.
Last 2 years, who would have thought that the same team that was basically anonymous for almost the entire season? I remember when I was trying to do the driver ratings every season, after every race, I had to literally go back and check the classification to see where Bottas and Joe were. That's how anonymous
this joke on this podcast that the flop was always Sauber.
Yeah, and there was nothing to talk about. But even the first few races this year, they were nowhere.
What I doing nothing. First race, he got a P7, right?
Yeah, but that wasn't a proper race. Everything happened and stuff. Like all the other races, it was like just at the back. Although Hülkenberg, every time he does well, he qualifies really badly. That's the other interesting thing. To go from 19th to third like he did, and he's doing like 16th to 5th and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going places now, so I'm kind of keen to see. It's still not. I feel for me to be proper Audi, the factory would have to be in Germany, not in Hinwil. But it's close enough to being like our first manufacturer for quite some time.
Even they'll have a base in Britain somewhere, right?
Probably.
They're expected to, yeah.
I
hate that about Formula One. Honestly, there's supposed to be a global. It's supposed to be a global racing series where everything is based around the same country. Ideally that should not be the case. But
and all the staff end up being British as well because that's where they're based. And it's like at least Ferrari it's actually Italians and shit and like but all the others like Alpine it's all British people like Mercedes they're all British I mean even like Super Aguri it was mostly British staff even though it was all big Honda projects and whatnot they need it's like is it really just because it's close to Silverstone is that the only there has to be another reason why they're also
there are multiple reasons. One is that it's the cost cap plays a role right now. Other than that the reason is most of the ecosystem of basically the aerodynamics, the kind of people that end up in Formula One, that's basically through the universities around that area. I mean, a lot of my batchmates they went to
Loughborough and stuff is one of the big ones.
A lot of my batchmates went to Britain just because of this, and they have ended up at Formula One teams now. It's the path to Formula One basically, and I think it's a bit of a shame because you need to start diversifying these things. Try to take it to Germany, at least spread it out in Europe if you don't spread it out continents.
Well, yeah, because I mean the French teams used to actually be in France and stuff. I mean, Toyota were based in Cologne, which was really random. I get that with Japanese teams having your only factory in Japan is very just inconvenient because of the location. In the same way, if Haas only had North Carolina, that's inconvenient. But it's like you just. Yeah, they're not. There's not
Cadillac
the same.
is going to have a similar thing, right? They will have
Cadillacs. They're being based at Silverstone. They're going to be right next door to Aston Martin.
Precisely.
It's like your Cadillac. You're supposed to be based in Detroit. I mean, I get that it's a dump, but still, it's just. I mean, back in the olden days, the teams were based actually in the places they came from, but it was a very different world back then. But yeah, you mentioned Cadillac. I mean, this is going on. It's just I've lost interest in them because they seem to only be interested in the most depressing, boring drivers imaginable. I mean, it's talks of like Checo, Bottas, and Ricciardo. It's like, come on, you surely you could do better than that.
Can they?
I mean, they got to do something. Like bring it. Maybe not two rookies, but a rookie or.
The thing is, what's the point? I actually had this discussion with the I had it I think a few years back with Vijay Mallya, the former Force India boss. So I actually asked this question that why he went with a lineup of Fisichella and I think it was Suttel that he picked up. So the reasoning behind it for him was that look, I could have gone with. I mean, the first question was why did he not go with an Indian driver because Karun Chandhok and Naren Karthikeyan were available. And his point was that the team was at a nascent stage. You need people from other teams that have tasted success in the past, so that you get the best methods that are needed to actually for a team to be successful. There are certain things that successful teams do that tend to be inculcated in your culture only through you can say a bit of an osmosis of bringing people from those areas. So when you're starting a new team, what you primarily want to do is set up a foundation. And when it comes to Cadillac, at least for the first 2-3 years, one shouldn't expect much from them. They are basically going to be somewhere at the back, still trying to get the pit stops sorted and just get the systems in process. And when you have such a thing, it's pointless to have a rookie in that case in your team because he's not going to be contributing much and you cannot expect him to do much either. That's why they just pick the two drivers that can get decent results, but that are not their long-term objective. So what I expect to happen is Bottas and Checo would be there, and the one that tends to perform well out of the two, that is going to stick around, and the other would be booted out, and then they'll bring a bigger talent into the team.
Just anyone but Ricciardo. We just don't need.
I said bigger talent. So
yeah. But I want them to be different. I don't want them to be just another like cut and paste team like every other. I want them to be like what Red Bull was like when they first joined, and they were the fun party team and did everything different. And people didn't take them seriously. I want them to bring some like American flair, and be unlike Haas, be actually American, and just be different and not all this like corporate bollocks and whatnot. Just be fun.
You know what's the shit part, by the way? Red Bull is not going to be Red Bull anymore, which is probably the shit part, at least for me, because that team stood out when it came to the way they went about things. Even in the paddock, they say that Red Bull, the environment around the team is entirely different from what every other team has. It's not corporate. Their parties tend to be louder. They tend to have a lot more fun when you can compare it with others.
I mean, they haven't been like that for a long time, really. Ever since they started getting successful and having to actually knuckle down.
Even before that, right? I mean, there are a lot of interviews from Honor where they said that a lot of team principals would kind of have a side eye towards Honor because they were too loud. They were at the back. They were a drinks company. I mean, even Hamilton has come out and said that he kind of regrets making that comment when he said that it's just a drinks company. So it won't be the same anymore. It's just run by the board now. So expect a Ferrari-like run, but worse.
Or if maybe would it just stop being Red Bull officially, so it just becomes something else if someone else buys it out?
That's what actually Jason was saying, that look, there are the whole Red Bull outfit, when you take Racing Bull and Red Bull into consideration, that's around 8 to 9 billions worth. And since this is it's not going to be a racing team anymore, it's going to be an investment for Red Bull. And once that happens, why not just have a badging exercise in place and sell the other part of the team to someone else?
I mean, because if it did stop being Red Bull completely, then the issue there is that they own two teams. So either you have to buy both of them, or Red Bull sells both of them to different buyers, and then we drop this A team B team madness we've had. Yeah. Because that might present an opportunity with RB for it to be bought by some Italian manufacturer or whoever, and resurrect another Italian team that isn't Ferrari or whatever.
Which is, by the way, it should be a possibility now, because F1 is now very, you can say, it's not a loss-making entity. It's a profit-making entity now. The problem is the entry barrier is too big. It's $1 billion, which is a lot for any, you can say, car manufacturer to come in, especially when the sales are basically slowing down in every part of the world. So it could happen, but intriguing.
There is any Italian manufacturer would be cool to have. Maybe not Fiat. That's a bit limp-wristed for a Formula One team. But like, if we could do
who is Maserati, the Fiat?
Isn't it Montezemolo, or I don't know? Sorry,
John Elkann.
Oh.
John Elkann is the I think he's the director of Stellantis. Stellantis owns FCA. FCA is Fiat Chrysler.
Aren't they? They're like Volkswagen, aren't they? That they own half of the Italian manufacturers, don't they? Fiat, or yeah. But Fiat, when you say Fiat, I think of the Panda. I don't think of like the Countach or the F40 or anything like that. But like, bring back Maserati could be fun, or Lamborghini. Actual Alfa Romeo, not that weird thing that Sauber was for a few years. Any of those, just one of them. Another manufacturer might be nice, and it would be actually Italian, because that's where the factory is. Or Lancia, because they've never. Well, actually, they sort of, but not really, did F1 in the 50s. Yeah, it's a funny one. That one
should be attractive, but the question is how many people want to do that. Because even look, Hyundai is interested. There's a Chinese entity that wants to own an F1 team. And boy, be careful of the Chinese when it comes to
that's going to be interesting in terms of intellectual property and whatnot.
Because they're far ahead, by the way, when it comes to the electric power and everything. They're just days ahead when it comes to the work that they've done already.
There's so many things. I mean, if with Red Bull itself, they could become anything. I mean, any firm, any company, anything could buy that out and get that factory Milton Keynes. So who knows?
That's basically one of the biggest, probably the state-of-the-art facility in Formula One, where everything is under one. And what's going to happen with RBPT? Is Ford going to stick around? Ford might buy it back. It's basically going the full circle.
Well, that's the thing. We still haven't had actual real Ford do Formula One, because we had Ford engines for years, but it was like it's Cosworth. It's like it's not Henry Ford's Ford Motor Company from Detroit. It's not that. We've never had Ford F1 team. We've had Ford Works teams like Stewart and stuff, but like actual
Jaguar was Ford only, right? But they
they were owned by Ford, but it was Jag. Like the branding and everything was Jag. But actual real Ford could be fun. Like we get this. We need more. Again, this is the old day thing of the manufacturers being the actual manufacturer and not just one of their sub brands, like 10,000 different versions of Lotus that we've had.
To be fair, Mercedes is just that.
Mercedes.
Well, I mean, Mercedes. Well, yeah. I mean, it's sort of it's still connected directly to Mercedes-Benz, the company, and it's the AMG is obviously their sports division in the same way that Renault Sport is just the sports division of Renault, and Alpine is sort of this weird like tumor that attaches itself to Renault or something.
Luca Di Meo's project, which basically ruined Renault.
It's a funny thing, Alpine. Whatever. I mean, not that this team has really got anything to do with Alpine anymore. Yeah, we need that. I mean, that wasn't a proper Toyota. You're based in Germany. Toyota's a Japanese company. What are you doing?
Toyota might take over Haas, by the way. There's also the rumors. Maybe in a few years.
Well, yeah. I mean, we saw this. Well, this past weekend, Kazuki Nakajima drove the Haas alongside Ayao Komatsu at the Festival of Speed. And first of all, that's a bit random. And I was like, oh yeah, that's Toyota. And a few weeks ago, Kamui Kobayashi was testing the Haas. So first time driving an F1 car in 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe we do just get Toyota Gazoo Racing's F1 division. And that would be fun, to be fair, because no one wants Haas. So why not make it Toyota?
I'm on board completely.
Maybe when Ben leaves, they bring back Kobayashi and we can see more overtakes.
Yes. I mean, God, such a wasted talent. He missed out on cars he really could have worked well with, I think. And, yeah. But I think that moment has passed. He's going to be, well, he's almost 40 now, so I think it's unlikely that one.
Bring in your favourite driver, Peter, Ryo Hirakawa.
Why is he there?
This is the other thing. It's some weird from a like historical geopolitical perspective. It is very interesting how Haas is just being like colonized by Japanese drivers. Yeah. It's supposed to be our American team and that. But Hirakawa, it is the weirdest thing. Is he must have links to Toyota, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he does.
Because he keeps testing with everybody, but he's never going to be an F1. He's been doing Super GT or Super Formula One of those for forever. It's like, where's this come from? It's a really odd one. But there's some teams are like that.
Having Miyata as well, but his F2 run has not been that good.
Well, yeah, he's been beyond useless. I'm so disappointed by that. Because of how good he was, it's like, it can't be that hard to just learn some not Japanese circuits. Like, what's the issue? He's perfectly good in Super Formula. And Super Formula, those cars are faster than Formula 2 as well. Unless we find out it's because of the fucking Pirelli tyres, and that's all it is. It's just ruining more drivers' careers or whatever.
It's also the ground effect car that plays a role.
Did they have that last year as well? Yeah, they did.
They did. There's also the element of we have no fucking clue what goes on within the team, because I've heard a lot of stories where two drivers in the same team, they might not have the same parts.
Oh, well, that's been going on for years. I mean, Formula 2 is an illegitimate series. I mean, we all know that none of the cars are remotely the same. I mean, the gaps are bigger. Miata
test in Formula 1 cars at least once or twice. Let's see where
see if he can do. Give it a go. It's just fair enough to give him one test at least. I think, because most of the F2 drivers have driven an F1 car at least once. But there aren't really any other Japanese drivers up and coming, because Ayumu Iwasa, he's a reserve for Red Bull, but he's doing Super Formula. Red Bull, they had Ren Sato and some other guy and for like a year, and they both flopped in the junior team. There's nobody else really waiting in the wings.
Isn't there that karting guy that Alpine used to hire, Kian Nakamura Mibieta, or whatever his name was?
Nakamura Berta or whatever. Maybe. Doesn't he do F3, or he did something?
He did at some point.
There was that half British, half Japanese guy who was in F3 for a year or two. Whatever his name was. Or half American, half Japanese, one of them. He's one of the ones that was like 5 nationalities all at once and can't make his mind up, like Maya Voig.
What's it called? Zdeněk Ševanek guy.
Oh yeah, Portuguese, Venezuelan, and Czech. It's like, that's not a thing. Like, no one has ever been that combination. It's not, yeah. And my Voig is like Dutch, Belgian, Spanish, probably British, probably American, and Aurelia Nobles is like 10,000 countries all at once. Like, yeah. It's a
When it comes
random
to the
one.
next generation, I do want to see where Freddy Slater ends up. Let's see.
Yeah,
what
he's the
he's
one,
doing
because
next season.
I make a point of following the junior Formula so I can anticipate who would make F1 in the future, and he's one. Give it 3 years and he'll be in Formula One. That one's basically
Could
a
be in
given.
Formula One by next season alone. I think he beat Lindblad quite handily in karting.
Yeah,
And
well,
he's
next
been-
season. I mean, well, at the moment he's doing Freck. He's stuck in Frecker. I don't think he would go. I mean, he did
He's
one
doing
round.
Freca? What is
So
he doing?
he did one round of F3 and got a podium, but because he's contracted to do Frecker, so he's in Frecker at the moment. Even though he could body everyone probably in F3 and F2, I don't think they would make a leap quite that significant because that's even bigger than Antonelli did. And again, he's still only 17.
I think he could easily just do an Antonelli, go straight to F2.
Yeah, 27, 28, maybe we'll see him somewhere. But he's not. He drives for Prema, but I don't think he's in any of the academies.
No, he's
not.
purposely not been in the academy because he doesn't want to tie himself down to a certain team.
And he's loaded, so he can just do whatever he wants.
He is loaded, yeah.
Yeah.
What I've heard.
There's him. I mean, the others, because I look at some. Because, yeah, Rafael Kamara is a big name. Rashid Al Daheri is like a marketing machine. I think he's sponsored by all these Arab oil things in Dubai because he's getting lots of attention. But then he seems to spend every other day he's vacationing in Greece on his Instagram. If he's not racing, he's on a yacht. So I think he comes from a ton of money. Because I think we've had so many Middle Eastern races, we've never had a Middle Eastern driver. So maybe something will happen with him.
Well, we have a Middle Eastern president, so FIA
Yeah.
president.
It'll happen soon. We haven't had a Middle Eastern team either. I mean,
At least in apparently in
Nedzo.
Formula Academy, a lot of these women are which is quite you can say quite bucking the tradition because a lot of females that are actually popping up when it comes to the F1 Academy, they are from the Middle East. There are at least 3
Yeah,
or
but
4 that are there.
realistically, none of them are going to be in Formula One.
Yeah.
So,
That's not happening. Yeah,
unless they
I don't-
radically change the cars, they're not going to make it to Formula One.
I think at least for next, if we are honest, at least for the next decade, there is not going to be a Formula One, a competitive Formula One female driver. Maybe after that, but again, it all depends on how grassroots they are going to go. Because at least whatever I've seen, there's a huge investment and backing which is going into outing these female drivers, whoever there are from karting, and then
Yeah.
and then pumping money into their projects and trying to bring them up.
Yeah, because I know that the F1 Academy has a development program below it as well, which Mika Hakkonen's daughter is currently in because she's in karting, and she's 14 and she's doing that. But like I remember when I was thinking when Max's daughter was born, I was thinking, damn, it's a girl. If it was a boy, it's like he's got the perfect genes for racing, and with a girl, it's like I don't know if it's going to happen yet because Abby Eaton from W Series, she was on a podcast and she actually explained in a really good explanation of why girls aren't in Formula One, and it's got nothing to do with like the patriarchy or systemic barriers. It's basically the aero is way too physical for them. Like up to like Formula 4 Frecker level, it's fine, but at F3 and above, when the aero kicks in, it gets much harder. The steering wheel is quite large, so if they've got smaller hands, gripping it is harder. And again, because for some odd reason they don't have power steering in the feeder series, which I think is really strange because they do in Formula One. So it's
according to Josh, it's because it costs money.
it can't. I mean, road cars have power steering. It's not that. It's not rocket science. Like, why can't they just put it? Yeah.
I mean, just look at how the F3 and F2 are run. They are probably the most symbolically run series in basically any Formula racing right now, and that's entirely down to
Yeah. It is ridiculous that there's no power steering. I think she said because the girls, for the most part, they're the perfect size for an F1 car because they're tiny and don't weigh much and whatnot. But it's the physical side that's doing it, and we see this in the fact that like Iron Dames are doing really well in endurance racing and stuff like that, and in rallying and everything. It's just not single seaters. It doesn't seem to work.
Even Jamie Chadwick is seemingly fine-ish in Indy Lights. I mean, not
she's just okay. Yeah. I mean, I saw that Dennis Hauger's dominating it, but then that's a series that he probably should have done like He probably should have done it like 5 years ago because he's been around for about 10,000 years now.
I don't know why Howard just didn't go straight into IndyCar. I don't know
Didn't
why,
get-
because he's got
didn't
experience.
have the money. He didn't have
Oh,
the money.
no, okay.
It seemed like IndyCar. It seemed like any old sod can get a seat in there. There's just infinite seats. It's like the Formula E rookie test. I don't think there's ever been a racing driver in the history of motorsports that hasn't done a Formula E rookie test. It's just everyone like, why the fuck is Daniel Kvyat doing it this time? When you've got like teenagers and stuff, and then he's in there. That goes. But IndyCar is an endless opportunities. That being said, I do want to know what's going on with Yuri Vips because he tested with, was it Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing? He was doing that, and he was hanging around on the pit wall, and now he's just like vanished. He doesn't go on social media. He's not driving. Like, does he live on the street? How is he making money now? Like,
he did a couple of races last year.
It's ironic that Santino Ferrucci can get a seat and have a successful career, but Yuri Vips can't.
Yeah,
honestly, Ferrucci's
yeah,
Ferrucci's a
gimp.
Yeah, I have worse words for him.
It's always in the back of my mind that the only reason that we have Liam Lawson in F1 is because we can't have Yuri Vips as well.
Exactly, that is it, 100%. And Yuri Vips was going to be a future Red Bull driver, so maybe he dodged a bullet on that front, but he. Actually, it seems it's a lot to do with the backlash RLL got from the entire self-righteous world, which kind of attacks.
Even with that, he still got attacked loads for them testing him. So he just can't. He can't go anywhere. He raced.
Now. I think he did a couple of races as well.
He did. That
was wasn't that like 2 years ago now though?
It was 2 years back, and I think Graham Rahal. I think he released a statement regarding this that I'd love to have Yuri. He's talented and everything, but I don't know. I think if
that would be an issue. I mean, they won't, but it would be an interesting twist if Cadillac hired him. That would be one way of being like, yeah, we don't care what you guys think, and we're going to go in a new way. Every other team, but they won't be. Yeah, so he hasn't.
His career is done. That's the blunt assessment.
Okay, so he did one race last year, and has been inactive since then. But like, I don't know. This is the thing about when you get drivers when they stop doing. I get that when you've retired after a long career, you have loads of money, you don't need to do it. But like, he's not.
Yeah.
Is he on what? Is he doing just a normal job now, or is he doing simulator?
He had decent money. The thing is, look, all of these drivers that are. Unless they are from very adverse conditions, like an Ocon or probably a George, they come from decent. The family does decently anyway, so
yeah,
you could have gone into. I mean, there are racing academies. You teach how to get to Formula One and not speak nonsense on a Twitch stream. So maybe there's something there. Probably, but yeah, his career is done. It was
ages. I think it was more than a year ago now when he was meant to. They recorded an episode of Screaming Meals with him on, but that podcast has died because they don't do that anymore. But they never released it because again they saw the demographics that 95% of their audience was teenage girls. And they're like, they're not going to warm up to Yuri Vips. So, but I wanted that episode out just to get his take on everything. But yeah,
anyway, he was a decent kid. I mean. 18, 19 years old. How old was he when he said that? 21?
21, 22. He's born August 2000, so he's almost 25 now.
So he was probably 21 to 22 when the whole thing happened. Yeah.
And like, wasn't Simon Pagenaud, wasn't he the racist one on? Or no, it was Kyle Larson on a stream as well, and he gets to do Indy and NASCAR. Well, unless obviously red flags get in the way. He does Indy and NASCAR on the same day now.
The best part about Kyle Larson was before his incident, he was driving for CGR, Chip Ganassi Racing, which in NASCAR is a midfield average team. It was before it got canned, and he went from being CGR, which is like Force India, maybe even somewhere worse
in
like
NASCAR.
It's like the Force India of NASCAR, and then he got a move to Hendrick, which is literally the Red Bull or the Mercedes of NASCAR, and won a championship in his first season back. After he said all that, it's weird how some drivers can get. It's because Larson was a generational talent. He'd been in winning races in CGR machinery that he shouldn't have been winning races in. But if you're a generational talent, you can get away with it. But if you're like, because Vips was good, but he wasn't going to be the next Verstappen. That's the problem.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Mm.
know. I mean, even in IndyCar, again, Alex Palou is good. He's brilliant. Okay, fine, I understand. But I think if drivers like Lungard, ultimately, if he sorts his issues with the ovals, he might become one of the more prominent contenders against him, maybe in the next couple of years.
Lundgaard is too inconsistent. Like over the past couple of races, he's been getting done by Nolan Siegel, and although Nolan Siegel's a good,
They were in the ovals, right? I think
Ovals
ovals is
and
his
in
biggest
Ohio.
issues. Sorry,
Ovals and in Mid Ohio. Mid Ohio, he qualified better, didn't
he was third, right?
Oh,
No,
he didn't
Lungard was
qualify.
second, and he finished third.
Oh well, I thought
When
Siegel
When
outqualified him.
Dixon won the race.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I thought Siegel outqualified. We might not have done, but Siegel's been doing better over the last couple of races. This is completely distracted from F1 driver talk. Nolan
Yeah.
Siegel's in F1.
Yeah. Nolan Siegel is what variants of F1 would you call him?
Pardon?
Pay driver. Joe Guan Yu. Nolan Siegel would basically be a Joe Guan Yu.
No, he thing is he's better than that because he's won his class at Le Mans and he's done well in Indy next. I'd say he's more like a pay driver who's actually somewhat decent, maybe like a 2010 Sergio Perez kind of level.
Oh, okay. Yeah. True. What's next?
I don't know. I think we're just watching like NASCAR and
I
IndyCar.
think we seem to be moving on to other series. I was just googling Yuri Vips to see if there's any recent information on him, but nothing from this year. Although there's an article from this year, but it's talking about his suspension. But it's like, okay, you're 3 years behind everyone else.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was looking at the comments of our latest podcast. Apparently, a few Dutch people are unhappy that I called the Verstappen camp stupid for the way they've gone about things.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yuri hasn't posted on Instagram since, well, it's been almost a year since he posted anything. Someone said, I am wondering, are you still living? I don't think he's dead, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, someone's just posted N as well, of course.
Oh,
God. It's only secretly doing testing work for an IndyCar team, but they won't release it publicly.
Well, that's the thing. The AI summary when I Google him, it says contention for a full-time IndyCar seat with RLL, but I think that's from last year because it mentions his driving with them last year. But yeah, for all we know, he has been doing simulator stuff in the background.
Yeah. To be fair, RLL though, they will literally hire anyone with a brain and legs and arms.
Yeah.
They literally hired like Tristan Vautier last year. Tristan Vautier hadn't done like an IndyCar race since like 2017, and they rehired him. Luca Giotto's driven for them in the last year. Literally, they do literally hire anyone with legs and arms.
Yeah, isn't was it Simon Pagano? Isn't he the one that like killed someone on a sim race or something? Or because I thought he was the racist one, but that was Carl Larson.
What did Kyle Larson say?
Wasn't it Grosjean?
Who what?
He killed Grosjean on a stream. Or
He
on
might
a
have.
sim race.
There were some drivers who were fanning around with like the iRacing stuff that NASCAR and IndyCar did during lockdown.
I think it was one of the official races that was being done during lockdown, and he took him out on like the last lap or something for the I don't know. That was when I found out his name, and everyone was like going mental over it.
A lot of NASCAR drivers were doing that. Like for example, Bubba Wallace.
Sim racing. It was Lando. That's what it was. Not Grosjean. He took out Lando on a stream. Oh yeah, it's because he said we take Lando out, let's do it. So it was he intentionally took him out. This was May 2020, so yeah, during lockdown.
Yeah, there were a couple of NASCAR drivers who got in trouble for stuff like Bubba Wallace. He quit during an iRacing stream because he was like really low down or something and lost a sponsor. There was who else was there? There was Jimmy Johnson, 7-time NASCAR champion. He qualified at the back and then just started doing donuts in the middle of a track while the race was still going on because he couldn't be bothered to race.
Well, yeah, there's people, but this is the issue when they tried to do the virtual Grand Prix, and I thought the idea was they'd get the entire grid, but very few drivers actually wanted to do it because I think some of the older ones had never done sim racing, and I can understand that maybe they were worried that they might drive really badly because they haven't played the games before. So we ended up with the Twitch quartet and then a bunch of random celebrities doing these official races.
And Anthony Davidson and David Coulthard.
Yeah. Liam Payne and random, like, where the fuck did that come from? Yeah, but those ones. I mean, the thing is, it was hard to take it seriously because most of the game crashed for a lot of people, so they couldn't even drive properly on it as well. And it was just a bit. It could have been done if they'd done it like with a proper LAN server thing. It might have worked, but whatever. It was just a bit of fun.
But you can't do a LAN server if everyone isn't in the same location. Unless
you could just attempt a socially distanced way of doing it. But it would have been, wouldn't have worked. I mean, we had the same problems with the sim racing thing I did with the YouTubers back in February. Loads of them bugging out and crashing and blah 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 because it's just the F1 games sucking.
Yeah.
We've moved very far away of talking about what's going to happen to Christian Horner and all of that, but yeah, we didn't. Well, we touched on that, but maybe we'll do him very quickly and then we will wrap up because I mean I think there's some maybe he could go to Alpine and be a TP there or. Yeah. Some kind of involvement in Aston, or maybe he just becomes a Sky Sports F1 pundit and analyst, or something. But he's got.
I feel like women like that.
Yeah, I think his first point of call is to get that lawsuit because they probably owe him an enormous payout for breaking his contract.
50 million apparently.
Yeah, so he's got to do that first, and then maybe he'll have time to at least work on his Riz and improve because, as we all know, it's absolutely awful.
The fact that you just used the word Riz, I think we need to try and wrap this part up.
Maybe, yeah. Was that a thumb or a penis kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, that was
turn it into a game show. Turn it into a game show, and he hosts it.
Yeah.
Is that a thumb or a penis?
Ideally, I think he'll be back as a team boss. That's what I see, and maybe by next year, same time, June, July. That's when he'll be back. Because by then it'll what the F1 landscape is going to be, and then he'll probably take a call.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, there's going to be a time in Formula One in the future. At least I think that's going to be the case, where Christian is going to have the best car in Formula One, best car and best team in Formula One, and his driver is going to have a crash with Max Verstappen. And more often than not, it's Max at fault, and I really want to hear what Christian says at that time.
Well, yeah, because he's the most media trained TP imaginable.
I mean, he backs his driver to the hilt. I mean, if Max had even killed someone on track, Christian would go out there with screenshots and everything and try to prove that Max didn't. But now, since Max is not his driver,
I'd argue Zach Brown is more media trained and defensive towards his drivers than Thingamajig. I'd also put Otmar Safnauer up there. I remember when he was Force India team principal and he was on the Sky Sports broadcast, and he would always talk about how something had gone against his team and that the FIA were conspiring against him and the other drivers were conspiring against him. Don't get me wrong; he's a decent enough TP, but he was a massive gimp on the.
They all just toe the party line. This is the thing about this. I mean, this applies to the drivers just as much. This is why they rarely, if anything, say anything interesting in the interviews because they're so media trained and they're not allowed to because God forbid they offend their fucking sponsors or whatever just by speaking their mind.
People like me and Ciaron would just eat it up and just put it on a article headline.
For sure. That's why I really begged them to say something.
It's like at least be funny. It doesn't have to be edgy funny, but just funny would be fine.
Because then it gets taken out of context, like, oh yeah, I'll take him out next race, and it's just Max Verstappen says he's gonna purposely crash into another driver because that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, well, the good thing with that is ignore the newspapers. Don't go on social media. Have your social media admin do it all for you. But with Max, it is, I understand they are especially relentless, the media, or rather the British media are especially relentless with throwing questions.
And the problem is not even that, right? The problem comes with, the media is not the main issue. The issue is the sponsors and how much they interfere with what a driver says or does.
Yeah,
I don't think 9 out of 10 drivers give a rat's ass what a media says, because media is supposed to say stuff. They'll be fine with it, but when it starts affecting their pocket, that's when it becomes an issue.
This is problem because in the 90s and early 2000s, NASCAR had a similar problem because it was entering a boom phase, just like F1 is now, and lots of sponsors came in and they started saying stuff like, "Well, we don't want our brand image. We don't want drivers taking each other out on purpose. We don't want our cars getting roughed up at the short tracks." So they tried to make NASCAR into something it wasn't, and it just didn't really work. And that's why NASCAR eventually ended up losing its boom phase, and then it went into a recession, and then now it's back up again. And that's why whenever people talk about F1 and its amazing rise, I always talk about NASCAR because it is going to come down. It's going to come down hard within the next 10, 15 years if they keep going the way they're going.
Yeah, well, I mean, I noticed
100%.
I noticed this myself being at Silverstone. The general enthusiasm from the spectators was really quite muted compared to when I went there in 2011 and 2012. It was like there was very little enthusiasm for what was actually going on track.
The real fans are not coming. That's the big issue. The real fans are not coming anymore. And why would they? And this is the same thing that UFC and the MMA industry went through, where what they've done since lockdown is they've jacked up the prices, and since the fans were hungry for action, they paid whatever it was and they came. Arenas were filled for a long time, and now it's slowly starting to taper off for them. And in terms of an
Yeah.
industry and in terms of viewing and everything, it's literally going down.
It doesn't
I
help
think-
that at Silverstone, the best corner on the circuit was colonized by a bunch of teenage girls wearing fluorescent green
I,
as well.
I think with F1 it doesn't help that, like, as you said, like 10, 20 years ago it was that F1 races were for F1 fans. Now it can be classed as kind of like a day out or a weekend out, like an
The
event.
class divide is quite
Yeah.
obvious, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
and I feel it as well because there have been times now it's about time we start getting invites to different races and everything.
Mm.
The concern is that it's just not for us in terms of it's for the affluent. A lot of my
Yes.
friends have gone there, and it's basically the who have like 100K followers or 200K followers. They are the ones that are being brought and basically paraded. It's the bunch of
Yeah,
eye
yeah.
candies that are doing the walk around the pit lane.
This
And
is
none of
something
them know
I
shit about Formula One.
is something I absolutely detest is when you see these random influencers who are getting paddock passes. It's always by either McLaren or Mercedes as well, for the weekend, and it's so people that they don't watch Formula One and they don't care at all, and they're
Yeah.
still getting those. Just so they can post about it on Instagram.
I will be honest. F1 nowadays it's got the biggest potential for just white middle class fan bases going to the races. That's essentially
Yeah.
what it is.
That is it.
Hmm.
That's what it has done. And again, it pisses me off because if you're going to marginalize your viewers, immediately it's going to hurt you in the long run. Because
Yes.
and it's again a lot of people might not like this view, but one of the major reasons why Formula One kind of grew around 2020 and 2021 was Lewis Hamilton when he did the whole BLM thing. That caught the eye of a lot of people where he had his whole spent a minute silence and everything. Again, it had its positive and the negative side, but the global audience could relate to that. Then you had the whole Ukraine thing and everything. But as soon as that went, there has been a complete shutdown on it, and the shutdown has come from the sponsors. Now, Lewis doesn't speak anything about any human rights. The number of races in Middle East, which were supposed to be a big issue for him, they've increased. They've not decreased in any which way. And he goes there and he has fun. He doesn't utter a single word about how things are there, what's going on in other geopolitical events. He doesn't say anything. Why? Because he's been told to shut up. That's the whole thing. And now what that has done is it has basically sanitized the entire environment. Now you're only attracting a certain group of people. That it's never good for the sport because it's not for everyone.
When was the last time that Lewis wore a gay helmet, a rainbow emblazoned helmet? 'Cause that was the last
think
time he probably did any
21,
stuff.
22.
I think
Yeah.
he still had those last year, didn't he, in Qatar and that? Or
I doubt it. I don't know.
the other teams have generally stopped all of that. But yeah, I mean, that brings in a new audience, but it's an audience that maybe isn't necessarily there for Formula One itself, because that coincided with the rise of Drive to Survive and that. Because before Lewis, there's going to be there's been there were things like there were the South Africa boycotts in the 1980s, but other than that, very few examples of being overtly political in the sense of like geopolitics rather than like the politics of the FIA or whatever.
Yeah, I mean there was
really-
Saudi Arabia in 22 with the missiles, but
Yeah,
yeah.
because
I mean-
again, that's yeah.
Look, that's the thing, because even right now, the media people are literally told you are not going to ask questions about Gaza. You're not going to ask questions about human rights in the Middle East. You're even not going to ask questions about what's going on in the United States when it comes to a lot of people being picked up from roads, the immigration thing, even the anti-abortion laws that are there. There are a lot
Yeah.
of things you are literally briefed that these things you cannot ask anymore.
But well, to
And
be
if-
fair, those have got nothing to do with Formula One at the end of the day. Like, there's a
Of
lot.
course they don't.
Yeah.
Of course they don't. But at the end of the day, he's not just a Formula One driver. And a lot of these guys aren't just, they are global citizens. And once you are, your opinion, you're free to share or not. But once you're being censored to even ask about it, and it's a premeditated censor. You're literally told beforehand that you cannot even talk about things. And if you dare to talk about it, your credentials are taken away.
I think Lewis is the only one that cares enough to actually speak about this anyway, because he was the one that brought up the BLM stuff and everything, and he's always been doing animal rights. The other drivers, they did the BLM stuff mostly because he basically forced them to. Otherwise, they wouldn't have said anything. I mean, they took the knee and did that, and Ricciardo put out a few things for a bit, and Vettel does his environmental, but the rest of the drivers, I think they honestly don't care. Like, and they know it's not their place to.
Yeah, they don't even know about these things, right?
Because I mean, some of the, I mean, they
Yeah.
They might, but then people like Lando, for example, they're so rich that they're basically above politics. So they probably don't even vote because it's like, well, whoever, it doesn't matter who's in government, because if they start taxing me, I can just get on my private jet and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But they're not, so they don't really need to
Exactly.
care. But
Let's look, all of them, none of them are actually, for the lack of a better word, they are not educated, right? They're not gone through schools and colleges and studied a particular history or anything like that. It's
and they don't
basically some of the
live in
stuff
they
that-
don't live in the same world as everyone else as well,
Exactly.
because they're shielded from so many different things that we aren't.
Exactly. And that's why it kind of pissed me off when when Hulkenberg got a podium and a lot of Lewis Hamilton softies got pissed off. Why? Because a comment he made a decade back about Racing Point being pink, and why are we even doing such nonsense?
Hold on,
But
so who made the comment? Well, Lewis did or Nico made it? A comment
Nico
about
made
Racing
a comment which was probably something misogynistic. He said, "I don't."
Oh,
remember
okay. It was like, it's a girls' team or something, or it's something of that nature, or whatever.
Something on those lines, and that apparently something he said 8 years back is something we should hold against.
Well,
him.
that's just Hamilton fans having a victimhood complex. So yeah.
Anyways,
again, we've gone way off track, but so I think we covered a bunch of stuff that went in a lot of different directions. But we'll see. I'm not expecting. I'm not expecting any big announcements in the next few weeks on a lot of things, to be honest. But we'll Nor am I expecting
probably
any
before summer
mid-season
break, right? I
transfer.
think we'll know, during the summer break, we'll know where the chips fall when it comes.
We'll
to
get some stuff. We'll get some contract extensions probably for anyone who hasn't got anything going for next year. A couple of those, if nothing else.
George and Max. I think that's when they will announce. Both of them have said the same thing.
Yeah,
that
I love that suddenly everyone has become, their favorite app has been Flight Radar for the past week. That was a very strange one, because they noticed both of them are flying to Sardinia.
Yeah,
And it's like, I get that if it's like politicians, you meet in a neutral territory to do negotiations, but that's just a really random place to do it. You could have just done it somewhere in England, because Milton Keynes and Brackley are not far. Like, met at Silverstone in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah, there are plenty of cafes there. Just go there and meet.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, but no, there's we'll see how that goes. But I think the 2026 grid is likely to be very much shaken up. You've been listening to the DRS Train podcast. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify at the DRS Train podcast. If you become a channel member, you get early access to videos, and you get extra content that doesn't always get published for everyone else. And you could join our other members, which are Burak Choshkun, Chris O'Dea, and Blue Guy. Make sure to tune in for our next episode. Stay safe, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cool.